you be more Victoria? A good few years ago now, I was signed off sick from NABS for a month due to mental exhaustion and anxiety. The previous 18 months had been a roller coaster of huge personal life changes. And one day, I just couldn't get out of bed. The response from NABS CEO at the time, we want to be part of your recovery. How can we best support you? Well, as you can imagine, knowing that NABS had my back had a hugely positive impact on my mood and the speed of my recovery. And you know, that CEO's response provided me with a role model that I've emulated with my own team in my leadership approach and style. So when any of them are going through a tough time, that is always my response to. And yes, that CEO's name was Victoria. I wonder, how can you be more Victoria? In the next 15 minutes, I'm going to do my best to inspire you by shining a light on the state of the industry, focusing on a snapshot of NABS approach, and thirdly, sprinting through some actions that you could adopt. And I'll conclude briefly with an insight from our Wellfest event that was last November. In the last few years, NABS has shone a light on what's been going on in the industry through an industry survey that was in 2018. In 2019, we also had an inaugural NABS track survey, a new twice yearly State of the Nation survey. And each year, of course, we collate our own stats about NABS service usage. So I have a smattering of stats to rattle through, highlighting what NABS has gleaned about wellbeing in our industry. Around 30% of industry employees leave the industry every year. That's double the UK average. 94% said wellbeing is essential for a successful and fulfilling career. And interestingly, a similar number agreed that NABS tracker should focus on how much self-awareness managers had around their own behaviour and their own stress levels as factors that can have a huge impact on team well-being. Calls to the NABS advice line, they increased by 1,000 in 2019 to nearly 4,500. That is a huge 76% increase since 2017. And as you can imagine, in the last few months, calls to the advice line have increased hugely again. A third of calls were from people seeking emotional support, and 58% of those were very particularly for mental health reasons. And that was an increase. It was 44% in 2017. Now, of course, what's fantastic is that there are companies already putting support in place. We all know that there's a huge commitment already happening to change company culture, to lead by example. And there are determined people already shining a light for the rest of us on new ways of being. And of course, with the new situation around coronavirus, with so many of us working from home, we're seeing companies really stepping up and acknowledging that one of the things that they really do need to do is support their staff's mental health. So how can you be more Victoria? Let's focus on a snapshot of NABS approach. As advisors, we have a carousel of coaching style questions in our heads. And when someone is struggling, there's a group that we tend to pick. One of the first things that we ask is, what is the impact on you We don't necessarily need to know the detail of what's going on for somebody, although we're very happy to listen. But we do ask, what's the impact on you? And then the next set of questions is, what do you need most? At the moment, most being the most important word. It helps people to focus on what they most need from their workplace, from their colleagues, their managers, from friends and family, their social network, and possibly from their GP and their medical support. And we encourage them to almost rehearse with this, to think about how can they ask for the help that they need, because we know that most people want to help, but sometimes don't know how best to do that. So if you can put into words how you most need help, that helps others to help you. And of course, NABS has a therapeutic provision that we can refer people to if they need that. But we do also really encourage people to think about what brings relief to them. I'll give you an example. We spoke to somebody who, in their spare time, enjoyed doing magic tricks, and learning a new magic trick was so absorbing that it really relieved that person from anxiety for an hour or two whilst they were learning. So there are many different ways that people find that relieve them, whether it's gardening, whether it's exercise, or something really quirky and unusual. But we really encourage people to think about it. The other thing we also encourage people to do is to remind themselves, to recall when they have been in a difficult situation previously, or when they've been struggling with their mental health previously, what helped, who helped, and also to remind them that they did get through it, that this time did pass, as will this one. And it's also really effective to remind people of how resilient they are. So I'm now going to sprint through 5 top tip actions that you can do. Firstly, share your own story. Be prepared to be vulnerable, but equally share your resilience and what helped and supported you. Know what normal looks like or sounds like about your colleagues, so that you will notice if their behaviour changes. And that can then lead to number 3, start the conversation. And that could be a way of starting a conversation, saying that you have noticed a change in someone's behaviour. Of course, what you do need to do is avoid something called, let me get that right, the drama triangle. The drama triangle is where you can end up in where you are rescuing, and you are the rescuer, and you then actually can become the persecutor, because you can never quite rescue somebody. And actually all it does is keep that vulnerable person in a vulnerable or victim mode. And actually what you want to do is empower them. So listen actively, stay in an adult voice, and put aside any of your own experience. This is not about sharing your own experiences. It's about listening to that person and what's going on for them. An awful lot of companies are already doing this, but mental health first aid training. Training up members of your staff to be mental health first aiders, so that the rest of your staff have got somebody that they can go and talk to confidentially about their situation. And then finally, flexible working, and bearing in mind our present situation where the majority of people are now working from home. Of course, it's about acknowledging what people's situation is at home. They may well have a pull on their time from needing to care for parents, for children, for a partner. So now we're looking very much at probably less work-life balance as work-life blend. And as managers and supporters of our staff, We need to make sure that we acknowledge that and provide as much flexibility in their working day as possible. So how can you be more Victoria? Well, in conclusion, we all know that part of good leadership is role modelling good behaviour, leading by example, reflecting the culture of your progressive company policies, modelling good, healthy, respectful behaviour that you want your colleagues to adopt and feel safe about. So you can delve into the state of your own company's well-being, ask the questions. How is everybody? What do they need from you? Ask yourself and your colleagues, what do you most need? And find a way of asking for it. And take action. Lead by example. At our last Wellfest event in November last year, Will Young, performer and mental health campaigner, as you probably know, delivered a simple but really effective message. He said, "It's so important to be heard by someone who won't invalidate your feelings." So you can start to be more Victoria by being that someone who validates others' feelings, like Victoria did for me.